All right, let's dive into something pretty interesting today. We're looking at this trading robot. It's called Gold Trading AI, and you can find it on the MetaTrader market. Now, if you haven't heard of that, it's basically a place where traders can they can buy and sell different tools for trading. You know, things like these expert advisors, EAs. They're basically automated trading robots. And this one, well, Gold Trading AI claims it can. It uses artificial intelligence to trade gold, the XAU USD pair specifically. Turn around, they will boast some pretty amazing results. So we've got a bunch of stuff to look at today. We've got descriptions of the EA. There's an MT4 and an MT5 version. We've also got reviews from people who have used it, and even data from a live trading signal. You know where you can copy the trades that the EA is making?
Yeah, you know what really jumps out at me is, I mean, some of these claims are pretty bold. They're saying 100% win rates, which honestly sounds a little too good to be true. And they even mentioned GPT-4, that they're using GPT-4 in their decision making, which, I mean, how can a language model be used for financial markets? It's a pretty big question. And then there's the pricing. It's almost like a puzzle, a marketing puzzle.
All right, yes. Limited time offer, only 3 copies left at $399, and then it jumps to $499, and then eventually goes all the way up to $1999. Really makes you think, what's the strategy there? Okay, before we get too caught up in the marketing, can we just take a step back for a second? For those who might not know, can you explain what an EA is or a trading robot and how it works?
Sure. So imagine you have like a trader who never sleeps. Yeah. They never get emotional. And they can analyze tons of data really quickly. That's kind of the goal of an EA. It's a piece of software that has a specific trading strategy programmed into it. Yep. And it uses things like, stop losses and take profits to manage trades automatically.
Right, and cold.
Most people listening probably know those terms, stop loss, take profit.
Well,
but what's interesting here is how this gold trading AI, how they're saying they set those levels and how that connects to their whole risk management, which they talk a lot about in the descriptions. They even say specifically that they don't use martingale or grid trading, which they call dangerous.
yeah, they really want to separate themselves from that. Those risky approaches. There's a lot of criticism around those. Martingale, for example, that's where you double down after every loss, hoping you'll eventually win back what you lost, but it can be incredibly risky. And then grid trading. That's where you put a bunch of buy and sell orders at different prices. So you create this grid, trying to profit from market ups and downs. But again, you can lose a lot if the market goes against you. So this EA, it's trying to be seen as a slicko, like a safer way to trade gold. At least that's what they're saying. Okay, so they say they're playing it safe. They say they're using AI to analyze the markets and make good trades. But is that actually true? What are people saying who have actually used this thing? We've got these reviews here for both the MT4 and the MT5 versions. And most of them, they seem really positive.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I mean, so many users are reporting consistent profits. And even, you said it earlier, those 100% win rates, some of them are short and sweet, like excellent EA and good support, or best EA ever, never lose.
But some are a bit more detailed. There was one that mentioned, they had some problems with backtesting. And another user said, be careful about using big lot sizes, even though they were doing well at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. And those are the ones that make you stop and think. I mean, a streak of wins is great. But is it really sustainable? What happens when the market changes? Which it always does. Can this EA adapt to that and keep making profits?
That's a really good point. It's easy to get caught up in all the positive reviews, but we have to look a bit deeper, see if there are any warning signs. And speaking of digging deeper, we've got this live trading signal data too. Can you explain what a trading signal is for those who don't know, and how it relates to this gold trading AI?
Sure. A trading signal is basically a way to follow the trades of someone else. Or in this case, an EA. It's like having a professional trader.
Yeah.
Or, in this case, an AI, making the decisions for you. You sign up for the signal, and it copies those trades into your own account.
So you're basically riding the coattails of the gold trading AI, which is interesting, but it costs a lot, right? Like $999 a month.
Yeah, it's not cheap. You should wonder how confident they are
Right.
to charge that much. But the data does look good. It shows 147.48% growth since September 18th.
And it's still at 100% win rate, over 53 trades, with each trade lasting about 7 hours on average.
And the maximum drawdown, which means the biggest dip the account has seen, is only 5%. So it seems pretty low risk, based on this data at least.
Okay, so we have positive reviews, we have impressive signal data, and a system that says it focuses on managing risk. It all sounds amazing, but I think we need to be a little skeptical. What are some of the risks or downsides that we should be thinking about?
Well, the biggest thing to remember is past performance doesn't guarantee future results. Just because this EA has been successful so far doesn't mean it will always be successful.
Right, the market's always changing.
Exactly. And even with a high win rate, there's always a chance of losing. Remember those reviews that mentioned large stop losses? That's something to think about. Even one losing trade could mean a big loss, especially if the stop loss is set far away. And we also have to consider that the data we have is only for a short time. A few months is good, but it's not a guarantee of long-term success.
True, it's like judging a book by its cover. Or I guess judging an EA by its first few chapters.
Exactly. We need to see how it does over a longer time through different market situations to really know how reliable it is.
Okay, so we're starting to peel back the layers here, going beyond the hype, considering the good and the bad. But there's another layer to this, isn't there? This whole thing about using AI, specifically GPT-4, to make trading decisions. It raises some interesting questions.
Yeah, that's the part that I find really interesting. When we're talking about a language model, it's usually used for things like writing text or translating languages. And now it's being used for the financial markets.
It's like we're going into uncharted territory. What are the implications of that?
That's a question that deserves its own deep dive. Maybe we'll do that another time. But for now, I think it's enough to just recognize that this is a new frontier.
Yeah.
And like any new frontier, there's a lot of potential, but also a lot of unknowns.
Okay, so we have this gold trading AI. People are talking about it. It has some impressive results. And it's using cutting-edge technology. But we also need to think critically. We need to dig deeper. And we need to consider both the rewards and the risks. So where do we go from here? What are the next steps in our analysis?
Well, I think the most important thing is to keep asking questions. We've started to unpack some of the key things here, but there's always more to explore.
Right. And as we continue this deep dive, we want you, the listener, to be involved too. We've given you the information we have, but ultimately it's up to you to decide what you think.
Exactly. We're not here to tell you what to believe. We're here to give you the tools and information so you can make your own decisions.
So what are some key questions that you, the listener, should be asking as we continue?
Well, for starters, think about the creator, this Ho Tuan thing. Who are they? What's their background in trading? Do they have a reputation for making good EAs?
That's a good point. Like with any investment, you want to know who's behind it, what their motivations are, and how much they know. We can look into that more in the next part of this deep dive.
We can also look more closely at the claims about GPT-4. How exactly are they using this language model? Is it actually making trading decisions? Or is it just providing information for the EA to use?
And of course, we need to keep looking at the data. We've seen some great results. But how do they hold up under scrutiny? Are there any hidden risks or vulnerabilities?
Those are just some of the questions we'll be exploring as we keep going with this deep dive, so stay with us. And we'll see if we can find the truth about this gold trading AI. So as we keep digging into these questions, you might be wondering, is there a way to see past all the marketing and figure out, what this EA can really do?
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? We see the great reviews, we see the amazing signal data, but how do we know what's real and what's just hype? How do we know if this gold trading AI is actually as good as it seems?
Well, one way to think about it is this. Instead of focusing on what they're saying, let's look at what's actually happening in the markets. Let's go beyond the marketing and examine the trading logic itself.
Okay, so we're going to look under the hood.
Exactly. Remember we talked about those large stop losses that some users mentioned? That's a good place to start. It tells us that this EA might be just some pretty big drawdowns. To get those high win rates.
So even though the signal data shows a pretty low maximum drawdown so far, maybe that's not the whole picture.
Right. It's possible the EA is taking more risks than we realize. And those large stop losses could really hurt if the market changes. It's like a tightrope walker. They look really steady and balanced, but one wrong step, and they can fall over shit.
That's a great way to put it. It shows how important it is to look beyond the surface and understand how this EA really works. But how do we actually do that? I'm not a programmer. I can't just look at the code and figure it out.
You don't have to be a programmer. One way is to look closely at the trading history. Look at when it enters and exits trades, the size of the positions, and how often it trades.
So we're not just looking at the win rate and profit, we're looking at the details of how those trades happened.
Exactly. By looking at the patterns, you can get a feel for, how much risk the EA is taking, its style of trading, and whether it's actually making good decisions or just getting lucky.
Okay, that makes sense. But let's not forget about the GPT-4 thing. I'm still trying to understand how a language model can be used for trading.
It's definitely strange. One possibility is GPT-4 could be used to analyze news and social media. to see how people are feeling about the market. Imagine the EA scanning thousands of articles and tweets, looking for changes in opinion. That could affect gold prices.
That's amazing. It's like giving the EA a sixth sense to tap into the collective mind of the market. But wouldn't that be super complicated? I mean, language is so nuanced. How can you be sure the AI is understanding it correctly?
That's the million-dollar question. And it shows the challenges of using AI for something like trading, which is so unpredictable. Even with the best language models, there's always a chance of misunderstanding, bias, or unintended consequences.
So using GPT-4 to analyze market sentiment, it's interesting, but it also comes with a lot of risks and unknowns.
Definitely. And that's why it's so important to be skeptical. Don't just assume that because it's AI, it's perfect. Ask questions, demand transparency, and really try to understand how this technology is being used.
Okay, so we're back to that idea of critical thinking, not believing everything we see. But let's switch gears for a minute. Let's talk about the creator, Tuan Theng. We talked about them briefly, but I think it's worth looking into them more.
Sure. So from what we see on the MetaTrader market, it looks like Ho Tuan Theng has made a lot of EAs, especially for gold trading. And a lot of them mention AI or neural networks. So it seems like they're really into using these technologies for trading.
And they seem to be pretty active with their users. They provide updates to their EAs, they respond to feedback, they even offer support through messages.
Yeah, that's a good sign. It shows that they're invested in their products and they care about their users' success. But we still have some unanswered questions.
Like, how did they learn to make an EA? That supposedly uses GPT-4. That's pretty advanced stuff.
Right. We don't know much about their background, their education, their work experience, or how they ended up creating this specific EA.
It's like we're missing a piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, and that makes it even more important to be careful about their claims. Just because they engage with their users and provide updates doesn't mean this particular EA is good or that it will work reliably.
Okay, so it's a tough situation. On one hand, we have this EA that could be revolutionary. People are saying good things about it, and it has some impressive features. But on the other hand, we don't know much about the creator. We don't know the details of how GPT-4 is being used, and we don't know if it will keep performing well in the long run.
It's all about weighing the potential rewards against the potential risks. And ultimately, each trader has to decide for themselves, based on their own risk tolerance, their goals, and how comfortable they are with uncertainty.
Right, there's no one right answer. Some traders might be excited to try this new technology, while others might want to wait and see what happens.
Exactly. That's what's so great about trading. There's no one-size-fits-all approach. The important thing is to make informed decisions that work for you and your trading style.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, what are the key takeaways for our listeners?
I think the most important things are these. First, don't believe the hype. Do your research, ask questions, and be critical of the information you see.
And second, remember that AI is just a tool. It's not magic. It can be powerful, but it doesn't guarantee success.
And finally, trust your gut if something feels wrong. If the risks seem too high, or if you're not comfortable with the uncertainty, it's okay to walk away.
That's great advice. Now, before we move on to the final part, I want to go back to that question we asked earlier. How can we as traders see past the marketing and figure out if this EA is really worth it? Are there any specific things we can do or resources we can use?
That's a great question, and we'll be talking about that in detail as we continue our deep dive into the world of gold trading AI. So stay with us, and we'll try to solve this mystery together.
All right, so we're back for the last part of our deep dive into this gold trading AI. We've talked about a lot, the marketing claims, the trading data, even using GPT-4 for trading. But let's get practical. If someone was thinking about actually using this EA, what could they do to really figure out if it's worth it?
Well, one thing they could do is go beyond just the basic performance numbers like win rate and profit, and really look closely at the trading history. Look for patterns in the trades. Analyze the entry and exit points, and pay attention to how it handles losing trades.
So we're not just looking at the big picture, we're getting into the nitty-gritty of each individual trade.
Yeah, exactly. Like, for instance, you see that the EA holds on to losing trades for a lot longer than winning trades. That might mean it's not managing risk very well, or if it keeps entering trades right before big market moves. That could mean it's just lucky, not that it's a good strategy.
Right, it's like those optical illusions where you think you see something, but it's not really there. We need to make sure the EA's success is because of good logic, not just a bunch of lucky breaks.
Exactly. And another thing you could do is backtest the EA yourself. Now, you mentioned earlier that one of the reviews had trouble with backtesting, so that makes things a bit tricky.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if there's something about how the EA is built that
Yeah.
makes it hard to backtest properly.
It's possible. But even if it's difficult, it's still worth trying to backtest it, using different historical data and different market conditions. That way you can get a better idea of how it might perform in different situations, and whether its past performance really tells us anything about the future.
So we're basically trying to put the EA through its paces to see how tough it really is.
Exactly. And that brings us back to risk management, which is something we've talked about a lot. Before you even think about using any EA, you need to know how much risk you're comfortable with, and make sure the EA's settings match your risk tolerance.
Because even with the best AI, you can't predict everything right, like those black swan events, the things you never see coming, that can mess up even the best trading plans.
Absolutely. That's why it's so important to have a good risk management plan, one that protects your money, even if the market goes crazy.
Okay, so we've talked about analyzing trading history, backtesting, and risk management. Anything else traders should do to evaluate this gold trading AI?
Well, one thing people often forget is the community around the EA. Are there forums or groups where users talk about their experiences? Is the creator responsive to feedback? A good community can be really helpful for traders, especially when you're using something new, like this EA.
It's like having a group of friends who can help you find your way.
Exactly. And speaking of uncharted territory, we can't finish this deep dive without talking more about GPT-4.
Right. That's the part that I find really fascinating, but it also leaves me with a lot of questions. Can a language model really understand the market and make good trading decisions?
That's a question that a lot of experts are still trying to answer. GPT-4 and other large language models, they're definitely powerful tools. They can process a ton of data, find patterns, and even write text that sounds like a human wrote it. But whether they can really grasp the complexities of financial markets and make smart trades, that's still up for debate.
So while it's cool to think about using GPT-4 for trading, we also need to be skeptical and remember that there's still a lot we don't know.
Absolutely. It's like any new technology. There's a lot of potential, but also potential risks.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one thing you want our listeners to remember?
The most important thing is this: be curious, be critical, and be skeptical. Don't fall for hype or promises of easy money. Do your research, ask questions, and make decisions that are right for you and your trading goals.
That's great advice. And remember, this is just the start of the conversation. AI is going to keep changing the world of finance, so we need to stay informed, stay engaged, and stay ahead of the game.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of gold trading AI.
And until next time.